second day of the Vasa, 17th of July 2011, and we come to the second night of the talks on the Digha Nikaya. Now we come to Sutta number 2, Samannaphala Sutta. Samanya means recluse or ascetic, a renunciant. Phala means fruits. So the fruit of the renunciant life, you can say, the fruits of the homeless life. Thus have I heard. Once the Lord was staying at Rajagaha in Jivaka Kumarabacha's mango grove, together with a large company of some 1,250 monks. And at that time, King Ajatasattu, the Dehi Putta of Magadha, having gone up to the roof of his palace, was sitting there surrounded by his ministers. On the 15th day, fast day, the full moon of the 4th month called Kamudi, and the king Ajatasattu on that fast day gave vent to this solemn utterance: "Delightful, friends, is this moonlit night. Charming is this moonlit night. Auspicious is this moonlit night. This moonlight night. Can we not today visit some ascetic or Brahmin to visit whom would bring peace to our heart?" I stop here for a moment. This King Ajatasattu, he killed his father because he wanted to become a king. He could not wait. So after that, his mind was very troubled. Night after night he could not sleep. So he thought it'd be good if he could visit some renunciant and that might give him some peace of heart. Because he killed his father, his vipaka was that he was also killed by his son, and that happened for a few generations. Then one minister said to King Ajatasattu, "Sire, there is Purana Kassapa who has many followers, a teacher of many, who is well known, renowned, the founder of a sect, highly honored by the multitude, of long standing, long since gone forth, aged and venerable. May your majesty visit this Purana Kassapa. He may well bring peace to your majesty's heart." At these words, King Ajatasattu was silent. Another minister said, "Sire, there is Makali Gosala, who has many followers, etc. He may well bring peace to your majesty's heart." At these words, King Ajatasattu was silent. Another minister said, "Sire, there is Ajita Kesa Kambali, etc., etc." In the same way, we praise Ajita. At these words, King Ajatasattu was silent. Another minister said, "Sire, there is Pakuda Kachayana, etc., etc." At these words, King Ajatasattu was silent. Another minister said, "Sire, there is Sanjaya Balata Putta, etc., etc." At these words, King Ajatasattu was silent. Another minister said, "Sire, there is the Niganta Nataputta, who has many followers, a teacher of many, who is well known, etc., etc., aged and venerable. May your majesty visit the Niganta Nataputta. He may well bring peace to your majesty's heart." At these words, King Ajatasattu was silent. Stop here for a moment. These are the various ascetic, these external ascetic leaders who were very famous during the time of the Buddha, and they were famous before the Buddha was enlightened, before the Buddha was known. So they already had an established reputation, but the king was not interested in them. All this time, Jivaka Kumarbacha was sitting silently near King Ajatasattu. The king said to him, "You friend Jivaka, why are you silent?" And he said, "Sire, there is this blessed Lord, Arahant, Sammasambuddha, staying in my mango grove with a large company of some 1,250 monks. And concerning the blessed Gautama, this fair report has been spread about. This blessed Lord is an Arahant, a fully enlightened Buddha, Sammasambuddha, endowed with wisdom and conduct, the well-farer, knower of the worlds, incomparable trainer of men to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, enlightened and blessed. May your majesty visit the blessed Lord. He may well bring peace to your majesty's heart." And the king said, "Then Jivaka, have the riding elephants made ready." "Very good, sire," said Jivaka. And he had 500 she-elephants made ready, and for the king the royal tusker. Stop here for a moment. This Jivaka Kumarabacha is the personal physician of the king. In the Vinaya books, there is a story. There is the real story how he became the king's physician. Then he reported, "Sire, the riding elephants are ready. Now is the time to do as your majesty wishes." And King Ajatasattu, having placed his wives each on one of the 500 she-elephants, mounted the royal tusker and proceeded in royal state, accompanied by torch-bearers, from Rajagaha towards Jivaka's mango grove. Stop here for a while. You see this, here the king is going out, and 500 of his wives are following him. This reminds us of the Deva. Deva in heaven, they are supposed to have at least 500 wives each. So this king, his karma is quite good. And when King Ajatasattu came near the mango grove, he felt fear and terror, and his hair stood on end. And feeling this fear and the rising of the hairs, the king said to Jivaka, "Friend Jivaka, you are not deceiving me. You are not tricking me. You are not delivering me up to an enemy. How is it that from this great number of 1,250 monks, not a sneeze, a cough, or a shout is to be heard?" Stop here for a moment. So this king, because he heard Jivaka say there are 1,250 monks staying there, but when he came, he found you so silent, and he became very suspicious. He thought it's a trap to kill him. "Have no fear, your majesty. I will not deceive you, or trick you, or deliver you up to an enemy. Approach, sire, approach. There are the lights burning in the round pavilion." So King Ajatasattu, having ridden on his elephant as far as the ground would permit, alighted and continued on foot to the door of the round pavilion. Then he said, "Jivaka, where is the Lord?" And Jivaka said, "That is the Lord, sire. That is the Lord sitting against the middle column with his order of monks in front of him." Then King Ajatasattu went up to the Lord and stood to one side. And standing there to one side, the king observed how the order of monks continued in silence like a clear lake, and he exclaimed, "If only Prince Udayabhadra were possessed of such calm as this order of monks." And the Buddha said, "Do your thoughts go to the one you love, your majesty?" And he said, "Lord, Prince Udayabhadra is very dear to me. If only he were possessed of the same calm as this order of monks." Stop here for a moment. So the king was surprised that so many monks, and they were so quiet. And suddenly he thought of his son. His son must have been very noisy and restless. And he thought it would be very good if his son were like this Sangha of monks. Then King Ajatasattu, having bowed down to the Lord and saluted the order of monks with joined hands, sat down to one side and said, "Lord, I would ask something if the Lord would deign to answer me." "Ask, your majesty, anything you like." Stop here for a moment. You see, so here, you see the king bows down to the Buddha, and he shows respect to the other monks by joined hands. So in India, there is great respect for renunciants. So that's why the king bows down. And also nowadays in Buddhist countries like Thailand, even the king also bows down to the monks. And he said, "Lord, just as there are these various craftsmen, such as elephant drivers, horse drivers, chariot fighters, archers, standard bearers, adjutants, army caterers, champions and senior officers, scouts, heroes, brave fighters, cuirassiers, slave sons, cooks, barbers, bathmen, bakers, garland makers, bleachers, weavers, basket makers, potters, calculators and accountants, and whatever other skills there are, they enjoy here and now the visible fruits of their skills. They themselves are delighted and pleased with this, as are their parents, children and colleagues and friends. They maintain and support ascetics and Brahmins, thus assuring for themselves a heavenly, happy reward tending towards paradise. Can you, Lord, point out to such a reward, visible here and now, as a fruit of the homeless life? Stop here for a moment. So this king is like many lay persons, ignorant lay persons. They think, why must a person become a monk? The life of the monk is so hard, so much suffering. I have to live in the forest, beg for the food, have not even a cent in the pocket, and all this thing. And so he wants to know what is the reason for becoming a renunciant, a homeless one. And the Buddha said, Your Majesty, do you admit that you have put this question to other ascetics and Brahmins? I admit it, Lord. Would Your Majesty mind saying how they replied? I do not mind telling the Lord or one like him. Well then, Your Majesty, tell me. Once, Lord, I went to see Purana Kassapa. Having exchanged courtesies, I sat down to one side and said, Good Kassapa, just as there are various craftsmen, etc., they enjoy here and now the visible fruits of their skills, etc. Can you, Kassapa, point to such a reward, visible here and now, as a fruit of the homeless life? At this, Lord, Purana Kassapa said, Your Majesty, by the doer or instigator of a thing, by one who cuts or causes to be cut, by one who burns or causes to be burned, by one who causes grief and weariness, by one who agitates or causes agitation, who causes life to be taken, or that which is not given to be taken, commits burglary, carries off booty, commits robbery, lies in ambush, commits adultery, and tells lies, no evil is done. If with a razor-sharp wheel one were to make of this earth one single mass and a heap of flesh, there would be no evil as a result of that. No evil would accrue. If one were to go along the south bank of the Ganges, killing, slaying, cutting or causing to be cut, burning or causing to be burned, there would be no evil as a result of that. No evil would accrue. Or if one were to go along the north bank of the Ganges, giving and causing to be given, sacrificing and causing to be sacrificed, there would be no merit as a result of that. No merit would accrue. In giving, self-control, abstinence and telling the truth, there is no merit and no merit accrues. Thus, Lord, Purana Kassapa, on being asked about the present fruits of the homeless life, explained non-action to me. Just as if, on being asked about a mango, he were to describe a breadfruit tree, or on being asked about a breadfruit tree, he were to describe a mango. So Purana Kassapa, on being asked about the present fruits of the homeless life, explained non-action to me. And Lord, I thought, how should one like me think despitefully of any ascetic or Brahmin dwelling in my territory? So I neither applauded nor rejected Purana Kassapa's words, but though displeased, not expressing my displeasure, saying nothing, rejecting and scorning speech, I got up and left. Stop here for a moment. So here you see this Purana Kassapa, when you ask him a question, he does not answer your question. Instead, he's trying to explain his doctrine, his belief, his view. And his view is that if you kill all the people in this whole world, there's no evil. And if you do good deeds also, there's no merit. This is very dangerous talk. He's saying there's no karma vipaka. So you can do all the evil you like, there's no result of that evil. And there's no use in doing good also, he's saying. So if his followers believe that, then they will not do any good, and they will do a lot of evil. So this king felt displeasure. In fact, he feels like despising this Purana Kassapa, but he thought he should not despise him. So without saying anything, he left. Once I visited Makali Gosala and asked him the same question. Makali Gosala said, Your Majesty, there is no cause or condition for the defilement of beings. They are defiled without cause or condition. There is no cause or condition for the purification of beings. They are purified without cause or condition. There is no self-power or other power. There is no power in humans, no strength or force, no vigor or exertion. All beings, all living things, all creatures, all that lives is without control, without power or strength. they experience the fixed cause of pleasure and pain through the 6 kinds of rebirth. There are 1,400,000 principal sorts of birth, and 6,000 others, and again 600. There are 500 kinds of karma, of 5 kinds, and 3 kinds, and half karma, 62 parts, 62 intermediary aeons, 6 classes of humankind, 8 stages of human progress, 4,900 occupations, 4,900 wanderers, 4,900 abodes of nagas, 2,000 sentient existences, 3,000 hells, 36 places of dust, 7 classes of rebirth as conscious beings, 7 as unconscious beings, and 7 as beings freed from bonds, 7 grades of devas, men, goblins, 7 lakes, 7 great and 7 small protuberances, 7 great and 7 small abysses, 7 great and 7 small dreams, 8,400,000 aeons, during which fools and wise run on and circle round till they make an end of suffering. Therefore, there is no such thing as saying, by this discipline or practice or austerity or holy life, I will bring my unripened karma to fruition, or I will gradually make this ripened karma go away. Neither of these things is possible, because pleasure and pain have been measured out with a measure, limited by the round of birth and death. And there is neither increase nor decrease, neither excellence nor inferiority. This as a ball of string, when thrown, runs till it is all unravelled. So fools and wise run on and circle round till they make an end of suffering. Thus, Makali Gosala, on being asked about the fruits of the homeless life, explained the purification of the round of birth and death to me. So I neither applauded nor rejected Makali Gosala's words, but got up and left. Stop here for a moment. So here this Makali Gosala is saying, everything is destined, and there's no use of effort. In the Sutta, one of the Suttas, the Buddha scolded this Makali Gosala and called him a fool, because the Buddha said he's leading people into the woeful plains of rebirth. Once I visited Ajita Kesa Kambali and asked him the same question. Ajita Kesa Kambali said, Your Majesty, there is nothing given, bestowed, offered in sacrifice. There is no fruit or result of good or bad deeds. There is not this world or the next. There is no mother or father. There are no spontaneously arisen beings. There are in the world no ascetics or Brahmins who have attained, who have perfectly practiced, who proclaim this world and the next, having realized them by their own super-knowledge. This human being is composed of the 4 great elements, and when one dies, the earth part reverts to earth, the water part to water, the fire part to fire, the air part to air, and the faculties pass away into space. They accompany the dead man with 4 bearers, and the bier as 5th. Their footsteps are heard as far as the cremation ground. There the bones whiten, the sacrifice ends in ashes. This is the idea of a fool to give this gift. The talk of those who preach a doctrine of survival is vain and false. Fools and wise at the breaking up of the body are destroyed and perish. They do not exist after death. Thus Ajita Kesam Kambali, on being asked about the fruits of the homeless life, explained the doctrine of annihilation to me, and I got up and left. Stop here for a moment. So here you find this Ajita Kesa Kambali, he has wrong view, and does not believe in karma, does not believe there are other planes of rebirth, does not believe that there are holy men, and he says when beings die, there is nothing left. Everything is destroyed. No more existence. So he's an annihilationist. So he's another famous teacher. When being asked a question, he talks about something else. Once I visited Pakuda Kachayana and asked him the same question. Pakuda Kachayana said, Your Majesty, these 7 things are not made or of a kind to be made, uncreated, unproductive, barren, false, stable as a column. They do not shake, do not change, obstruct one another, nor are they able to cause one another pleasure, pain, or both. What are the 7? the earth body, the water body, the fire body, the air body, pleasure and pain, and the life principle. These 7 are not made, etc. Thus there is neither slain nor slayer, neither hearer nor proclaimer, neither knower nor causer of knowing. And whoever cuts off a man's head with a sharp sword does not deprive anyone of life. He just inserts the blade in the intervening space between these 7 bodies. Thus, Lord, Pakuda Kachayana, on being asked about the fruits of the homeless life, answered with something quite different, etc. I got up and left. Sorry for a moment. So here is another foolish teacher saying about 7 things that he thinks exist. Also says there is no karma vipaka. I visited Niganta Nataputta and asked him the same question. The Niganta Nataputta said, Your Majesty, here a Niganta is bound by a 4-fold restraint. What for? He is curbed by all curbs, enclosed by all curbs, cleared by all curbs, and claimed by all curbs. And as far as a Niganta is bound by this 4-fold restraint, thus the Niganta is called self-perfected, self-controlled, self-established. Thus, Lord, the Niganta Nataputta, on being asked about the fruits of the homeless life, explained the 4-fold restraint to me, etc. I got up and left. I stopped here for a moment. Now, this Niganta Nataputta, this was another famous teacher, but he's one of the few that his followers exist right up to now. They are also called the Jains. And he's one of 3 types of ascetics in India at the time of the Buddha who are naked ascetics. And they are very strict vegetarians, these Nigantas. They are vegans. And not only vegans, even I think up to today, they will not take, like for example, green vegetables. They say green vegetables have life. So they will only take yellow vegetables, which they say have no more life. Because I know a doctor who told me when he was young, he worked in India, and he went to attend to one rich lady and found that she was suffering from malnutrition, and then realized that because they were Nigantas, they were not eating any meat, not taking any milk, etc. Once I visited Sanjaya Balata Putta and asked him the same question. Sanjaya Balata Putta said, If you ask me, is there another world? If I thought so, I would say so. But I don't think so. I don't say it is so. And I don't say otherwise. I don't say it is not. And I do not say it is not. If you ask, isn't there another world? Or both or neither? Is there fruit or result of good and bad deeds? Isn't there both? Neither. Does the Tathagata exist after death? Does he not? Both, neither. I don't not say it is not. Thus, Lord, Sanjaya Balata Putta, and being asked about the fruits of the homeless life, replied by evasion, just as if on being asked about a mango, he were to describe a breadfruit, etc. And I thought, of all these ascetics and Brahmins, Sanjaya Balata Putta is the most stupid and confused. So I neither applauded nor rejected his words, but got up and left. Stop here for a moment. So this Sanjaya is one of those. In the last night we heard about eel wrigglers. He's an eel wriggler. He doesn't say this, he doesn't say that. And he says he doesn't say that he doesn't say also. And so, Lord, I now ask the Blessed One, just as there are these various craftsmen, etc., who enjoy here and now the visible fruits of their skills, assuring for themselves a heavenly happy reward, etc. Can you, Lord, point to such a reward, visible here and now, as a fruit of the homeless life? I can, Your Majesty. I will ask a few questions in return, and you, Sire, shall answer as you see fit. What do you think, Sire? Suppose there were a man, a slave, a laborer, getting up before you and going to bed after you, willingly doing whatever has to be done, well-mannered, pleasant-spoken, working in your presence, and he might think, it is strange, it is wonderful, the destiny and fruits of meritorious deeds. This King Ajatasattu, Vadehi Putta of Magadha, is a man, and I too am a man. The king is addicted to and indulges in the 5 sense pleasures, just like a god. whereas I am a slave, etc., working in his presence. I ought to do something meritorious. Suppose I were to shave off my hair and beard, don yellow robes, and go forth from the household life into homelessness. And before long he does so. And he, having thus gone forth, might dwell, restrained in body, speech, and thought, satisfied with a minimum of food and clothing, content in solitude. And then if people were to announce to you, Sire, you remember that slave who worked in your presence and who shaved off his hair and beard and went forth into homelessness. He is living restrained in body, speech, and thought, etc., in solitude. Would you then say, that man must come back and be a slave and work for me as before? And the king said, No, indeed, Lord, for we should pay homage to him. We should rise and invite him and press him to receive from us robes, food, lodging, medicines for sickness and requisites, and make arrangements for his proper protection. What do you think, sire? Is that one fruit of the homeless life visible here and now? Certainly, Lord. Then that, sire, is the first such fruit of the homeless life. But Lord, can you show any other reward visible here and now as a fruit of the homeless life? I can, sire. I will just ask a few questions in return, and you, sire, shall answer as you see fit. What do you think, sire? Suppose there were a man, a farmer, a householder in your service, the steward of an estate. He might think, it is strange, it is wonderful, the destiny and fruits of meritorious deeds. This King Ajatasattu is a man, and I too am a man. The king is addicted to and indulges in the fivefold sense pleasures, just like a god, whereas I am a farmer, the steward of an estate. I ought to do something meritorious. Suppose I were to go forth from the household life into homelessness, and before long he does so, and he, having thus gone forth, might dwell in solitude, etc. And if people were to tell you this, would you then say, that man must come back and be a steward as before? No, indeed, Lord, for we should pay homage to him. We should rise and invite him and press him to receive from us robes, food, lodging, medicines for sickness and requisites, and make arrangements for his proper protection. What do you think, sire? Is that one fruit of the homeless life visible here and now? Certainly, Lord. Then that, sire, is the second such fruit of the homeless life. Let's stop here for a moment. So here you see the Buddha is asking the king, suppose you have a slave or a farmer working for you. And then suddenly, one day, he decides to become a renunciant. Will you call him back to work for you? The king said, no. He's really practicing as a renunciant, restrained in body, speech, and thought. Then the king said, we would press him to receive requisites from us and protect him properly and even pay respect to him. So you see, Buddha very quickly shows to the king this is a simple fruit of the homeless life. Once a person becomes a monk, even he's as low as a slave, but when he becomes a monk, even the king also pays homage to him. So it's so obvious that there's such a great benefit of becoming a renunciant. But Lord, can you show me any other reward visible here and now as a fruit of the homeless life that is more excellent and perfect than these? I can, sire. Please listen, your majesty. Pay proper attention and I will speak. Yes, Lord, said King Ajatasattu, and the Lord went on. Your majesty, it happens that a Tathagata arises in the world, an Arahant, Sammasambuddha, endowed with wisdom and conduct, well-farer, knower of the worlds, incomparable trainer of men to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, enlightened and blessed. He, having realized it by his own super-knowledge, proclaims this world with its devas, maras and brahmas, its princes and people. He preaches the Dhamma, which is lovely in its beginning, lovely in its middle, lovely in its ending, in the spirit and in the letter, and displays a fully perfected and purified holy life. This Dhamma is heard by a householder or a householder's son, or one reborn in some family or other. Having heard this Dhamma, he gains faith in the Tathagata. Having gained this faith, he reflects, the household life is close and dusty. The homeless life is free as air. It is not easy living the household life. to live the fully perfected holy life, purified and polished like a conch shell. Suppose I were to shave off my hair and beard, don yellow robes, and go forth from the household life into homelessness, and after some time he abandons his property, small or great, leaves his circle of relatives, small or great, shaves off his hair and beard, dons yellow robes, and goes forth into the homeless life. Let's stop here for a moment. So here you see the Buddha says that when an Arahant Buddha arises in the world, then he, having realized with his own super knowledge the state of the world, he proclaims this world with his Devas, Maras and Brahmas, etc. In other words, he teaches the reality about the world because people who are not enlightened, we only understand the world through our six senses. What we see, what we hear, smell, taste, touch, and think. So our understanding is limited by our six senses. Whereas an enlightened person, he has transcended the six senses and using the inner eye of wisdom as well as the heavenly eye, like the Buddha, his third eye or heavenly eye is open and he can see beings that normally we cannot see. So he can see heaven and hell, etc. So he explains all this to us that otherwise we would be ignorant of. And then because he teaches the Dhamma, you see, the Dhamma is heard by a householder or a householder's son. And then having heard the Dhamma, he gains faith in the Tathagata, and then he goes forth. So you see, for a person to understand the Dhamma, he must listen to the Dhamma. If Sammasambuddha did not arise in the world, and there is no real Dhamma, then however much we meditate, however much we think about it, we can never attain the fruit, the Aryan fruitions, the real fruits of the holy life. So it is by listening to the Dhamma that we gain faith, and then we decide to practice the holy life. So here you see this person, this lay person, having heard the Dhamma, he thinks as a lay person it's very difficult to practice the holy life. As a lay person, says the family life is close and dusty, whereas the renunciant life is how does he say here? Homeless life is free as air, and so in other words, to practice the holy life only as a renunciant, it is more convenient, more you have more freedom, free as air, freedom to practice the holy life. That's why people go forth. But unless you make some progress as a lay person, there's no point in going forth. If a person is not ready to go forth, you go forth too early, then you will never succeed. Only as a lay person you have practiced enough, advanced enough, then you find that you are restricted in time, you are restricted in many ways. So if you really want to practice, then only you renounce. So a person who renounces, abandons his property, leaves his circle of relatives, small or great, and goes forth. A lot of people, they think they want to renounce, but they don't really understand what it means to renounce. So if a person doesn't really understand what it means to renounce, he should not renounce. You have to be very, very sure of yourself. Because when a person renounces, then he has to abandon his property, he has to leave his family, friends and relatives, etc. If you are not ready to do that, then you are not ready to renounce. And having gone forth, he dwells restrained by the restraint of the rules, persisting in right behavior, seeing danger in the slightest faults, observing the commitments he has taken on regarding body, deed and word, devoted to the skilled and purified life, perfected in morality with the sense doors guarded, and skilled in mindful awareness and content. And how, sire, is a monk perfected in morality? Abandoning the taking of life, he dwells refraining from taking life, without stick or sword, scrupulous, compassionate, trembling for the welfare of all living beings. Thus he is accomplished in morality, abandoning the taking of what is given, abandoning unchastity, etc., and so on, through the 3 sections on morality as in Sutta 1, verses 1.8 to 1.27. A monk refrains from such base arts and wrong means of livelihood. Thus he is perfected in morality. Stop here for a moment. So here is going through all the different types of sila that is practiced when a person renounces. Last night we just heard basically the 7 precepts, then went on to the 10 precepts, then went on to not practicing the shaman practices, not making predictions, and all the different types of wrong livelihood for a renunciant. He does not do all that. And then sire, that monk who is perfected in morality sees no danger from any side owing to his being restrained by morality. Just as a duly anointed Katya king, having conquered his enemies, by that very fact sees no danger from any side. So the monk, on account of his morality, sees no danger anywhere. He experiences in himself the blameless bliss that comes from maintaining this Aryan morality. In this way, sire, he is perfected in morality. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying that if a monk keeps his sila, his moral conduct purely, then he is blameless, totally blameless. He does not see any danger, nobody can fault him. So this is the first thing that a person having gone forth has to practice. There are some people who come into the homeless life, they wear the robe, but they don't follow a teacher. So if they don't follow a teacher, or at least study the suttas and the Vinaya, then they don't know what is the sila they are expected to practice. And a lot of them misconduct themselves. So they get blamed. And so many people can blame them. But if a person, his moral conduct is perfect, then there's no danger. Nobody can fault him. And how, sire, is he a guardian of the sense doors? Here a monk, on seeing a visible object with the eye, does not grasp at its major signs or secondary characteristics, because greed and sorrow, evil unskilled states, would overwhelm him if he dwelt, leaving his eye faculty unguarded. So he practices guarding it. He protects the eye faculty, develops restraint of the eye faculty. Similarly, on hearing a sound with the ear, smelling an odor with the nose, tasting a flavor with the tongue, feeling an object with the body, or thinking a thought with the mind, he does not grasp at its major signs or secondary characteristics. He develops restraint of the mind faculty. He experiences within himself the blameless bliss that comes from maintaining this Aryan guarding of the faculties. In this way, sire, a monk is a guardian of the sense doors. Stop here for a moment. So there's a second thing a monk has to practice to guard the sense doors. Not to pay attention too much to the 6 sense, external sense objects of sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thoughts. Because the Buddha says this is Mara's ground, Satan's ground. Satan or Mara is trying to catch us with the bait of beautiful sights, nice sounds, fragrant odors, good taste, nice touch, and nice things to think about, nice thoughts. So if we start enjoying these things, then we get craving will arise, and we get caught by Mara. So because of that, the Buddha says that we should practice restraint. Here you see here, because greed and sorrow, evil, unskilled states would overwhelm him if he dwelt leaving the faculties unguarded. So if a monk does not guard his sense faculties, either he becomes greedy for seeing, hearing, etc. Or if he cannot satisfy what he wants to see and hear and smell and taste, etc., then sorrow would arise. And various kinds of evil, unskilled states, jealousy, selfishness, etc. And then we come to the third one. And how, sire, is a monk accomplished in mindfulness and clear awareness? Here a monk acts with clear awareness in going forth and back, in looking ahead or behind him, in bending and stretching, in wearing his outer and inner robe, and carrying his bowl, in eating, drinking, chewing and swallowing, in evacuating and urinating, in walking, standing, sitting, lying down, in waking, in speaking and in keeping silent. He acts with clear awareness. In this way, a monk is accomplished in mindfulness and clear awareness. Stop here for a moment. This mindfulness and clear awareness here is, you notice, whatever he does, he is mindful. And this is not yet meditation, this is just basic mindfulness. We haven't come to the meditation part yet. A lot of people, they think this is meditation. Actually, for a lot of people, I notice that they come to this monastery, and this monastery, being a forest monastery, sometimes you hear this nice sounds of birds or some animal cries and all that. Sometimes I ask people, have you heard this? And they say no. That shows their mind is somewhere else. We are so used to using our mind, thinking about this, thinking of that, and that when you come here, your mind is still running all over the place, and this kind of sounds you don't hear. But when a monk stays in the forest long enough, and then he begins to notice all these things. Why? Partly because his mind doesn't go out. He stays in a quiet, secluded place. He doesn't think about seeing what the latest film shows in town, or astro, or emails and all that. So the mind calms down naturally. That's why it's very conducive if a person wants to practice the holy life, to stay in a quiet, secluded place. And how is a monk contented? Here a monk is satisfied with a robe to protect his body, with arms to satisfy his stomach, and having accepted sufficient, he goes on his way. Just as a bird with wings flies hither and thither, burdened by nothing but its wings, so he is satisfied. In this way, sire, a monk is contented. Sorry for a moment. So here, a monk practices contentment, doesn't want more than the necessities for living. Then he, equipped with this Aryan morality, with this Aryan restraint of the senses, with this Aryan contentment, finds a solitary lodging at the root of a forest tree, in a mountain, cave or gorge, a charnel ground, a jungle thicket, or in the open air, on a heap of straw. Stop here for a moment. So this is the fifth thing he practices, which is seclusion, solitary lodging. Then having eaten after his return from the alms round, he sits down cross-legged, holding his body erect, and concentrates on keeping mindfulness established before him. Abandoning worldly desires, he dwells with a mind freed from worldly desires, and his mind is purified of them. Abandoning ill will and hatred, and by compassionate love for the welfare of all living beings, his mind is purified of ill will and hatred. Abandoning sloth and torpor, perceiving light, mindful and clearly aware, his mind is purified of sloth and torpor. Abandoning worry and flurry, and with an inwardly calm mind, his heart is purified of worry and flurry. Abandoning doubt, he dwells with doubt left behind, without uncertainty as to what things are wholesome. His mind is purified of doubt. This is as a man who had taken a loan to develop his business, and whose business had prospered, might pay off his old debts, and with what was left over could support a wife, might think, before this I developed my business by borrowing, but now it has prospered, etc. And he would rejoice and be glad about that. Just as a man who was ill, suffering, terribly sick, with no appetite and weak in body, might after a time recover and regain his appetite and bodily strength, and he might think, before this I was ill, etc., and he would rejoice and be glad about that. Just as a man might be bound in prison, and after a time he might be freed from his bonds, without any loss, with no deduction from his possessions, he might think, before this I was in prison, etc., and he would rejoice and be glad about that. Just as a man might be a slave, not his own master, dependent on another, unable to go where he liked, and after some time he might be freed from slavery, able to go where he liked, might think, before this I was a slave, etc., and he would rejoice and be glad about that. Just as a man laden with goods and wealth might go on a long journey through the desert where food was scarce and danger abounded. And after a time he would get through the desert and arrive safe and sound at the edge of a village, might think, before this I was in danger, now I am safe at the edge of a village. And he would rejoice and be glad about that. As long as a monk does not perceive the disappearance of the 5 hindrances in himself, he feels as if in death, in sickness, in bonds, in slavery, on a desert journey. But when he perceives the disappearance of the 5 hindrances in himself, it is as if he were freed from death, from sickness, from bonds, from slavery, from the perils of the desert. Okay, stop here for a moment. So here is the meditation part. So here the Buddha says, a monk wants to practice meditation. He goes to a secluded place, an aranya, and he sits down cross-legged and concentrates on keeping mindfulness established before him. This is satipatthana. For example, mindfulness of the breath. And then he keeps meditating, and slowly the 5 hindrances are abandoned. So you look at all these similes given by the Buddha, it is meant to convey that this abandonment of the hindrances are quite permanent. Not like some people say that you only abandon the 5 hindrances when you are in jhana. But when you come out of jhana, the hindrances come back. This is not true. One thing you must know, the 5 hindrances are things that obsess your mind. They are so strong. They are called 5 hindrances because they hinder you from thinking straight, from thinking clearly, so that you don't have the higher wisdom. So because they are strong, they are called hindrances. So when the hindrances are abandoned, it does not mean that they disappear entirely. There is still some of it left, but they are not strong. And because they are not strong enough to obsess your mind, they are not called hindrances. The difference, for example, with an arahant is that the roots have been plucked out. For an arahant, the roots have been plucked out. So even the little amount of hindrance is not there. But for a person who has not yet become an arahant, the roots of these 5 hindrances are still there. But because they are like lalang, when lalang is the grass is tall, and they obstruct us from walking properly. But when you cut it down, for example, to 1 inch or 2 inch, they don't obstruct you anymore, even though they are there, but they are very little. So in the same way, these 5 hindrances, when a person attains the jhanas, they are cut away. That's why you see in this paragraph 74, he says, as long as a monk does not perceive the disappearance of the 5 hindrances in himself, so these 5 hindrances disappear. That means they are no more a hindrance. Also you notice in paragraph 68, when a person just about to enter the first jhana, he is in that state, what later books call the threshold concentration or assess concentration. Upachara samadhi, that's the term that was coined later. You find when a person attains that state, you see that perceiving light, mindful and clearly aware. So he experiences light, and this light wells up from within his body, from within his heart, because the light wells up from within. So some people say the heart is in the chest. The heart is in the chest, but really the heart or the mind is everywhere. The whole world is the mind. So now we come to paragraph 75. And when he knows that these 5 hindrances have left him, gladness arises in him. From gladness comes delight. From the delight in his mind, his body is tranquilized. And with a tranquil body, he feels joy. And with joy, his mind is concentrated. Delight is piti, and joy is sukha. Being thus detached from sense desires, detached from unwholesome states, he enters and remains in the first jhana, which is with, here it says thinking and pondering, but I think a better translation, which is with thought directed and thought sustained, born of detachment, filled with delight and joy. And with this delight and joy born of detachment, he so suffuses, drenches, fills and irradiates his body that there is no spot in his entire body that is untouched by this delight and joy born of detachment. Just as a skilled bathman or his assistant, kneading the soap powder which he has sprinkled with water, forms from it in a metal dish a soft lump, so that the ball of soap powder becomes one oleaginous mass, bound with oil so that nothing escapes. So this monk suffuses, drenches, fills and irradiates his body so that no spot remains untouched. This, sire, is a fruit of the homeless life, visible here and now, that is more excellent and perfect than the former ones. Let's stop here for a moment. So here, you notice the Buddha describes the first jhana, and also the Buddha is telling us how to practice this first jhana. When this state of first jhana arises, the Buddha says to make the piti and sukha fill the whole body, so that there's no part of the body that does not experience this piti and sukha. So you find in the sutta there's a lot of practical instructions given by the Buddha. There's no need to look for other teachers. The Buddha has said, later we'll find in Sutta Digha Nikaya, Sutta 29, the Buddha says his teachings are utterly pure, perfect and complete. And if you think you want to add to his words, you don't understand the Dhamma. If you think you want to subtract from his words, also you don't understand the Dhamma. So a lot of people, because you don't understand the Buddha's Dhamma, you go around looking here and there for a famous teacher. You don't need to do that. The Buddha says all his Dhamma in the suttas is complete and perfect. No need to add to his words. Again, a monk, with the subsiding of thinking and pondering, or thought directed and sustained, by gaining inner tranquility and oneness of mind, enters and remains in the second jhana, which is without thinking and pondering, born of concentration, filled with delight and joy. And with this delight and joy born of concentration, he so suffuses his body that no spot remains untouched. Just as a lake fed by a spring, with no inflow from east, west, north or south, where the rain god sends moderate showers from time to time. The water welling up from below, mingling with cool water, would suffuse, fill and irradiate that cool water, so that no part of the pool was untouched by it. So with this delight and joy born of concentration, he so suffuses his body that no spot remains untouched. This, sire, is a fruit more excellent and perfect than the former ones. Again, a monk with the fading away of delight remains imperturbable, mindful and clearly aware, and experiences in himself that joy of which the noble ones say, "Happy is he who dwells with equanimity and mindfulness," and he enters and remains in the third jhana. And with this joy devoid of delight, he so suffuses his body that no spot remains untouched. It is as if in a pond of blue, red or white lotuses, in which the flowers born in the water, grown in the water, not growing out of the water, are fed from the water's depths, those blue, red or white lotuses would be suffused, etc., with the cool waters. So with this joy devoid of delight, the monk so suffuses his body that no spot remains untouched. This is a fruit of the homeless life, more excellent and perfect than the former ones. Again, a monk having given up pleasure and pain, and with the disappearance of former gladness and sadness, enters and remains in the fourth jhana, which is beyond pleasure and pain, and purified by equanimity and mindfulness, or you can also say with utter purity of equanimity and mindfulness. And he sits suffusing his body with that mental purity and clarification, so that no part of his body is untouched by it. Just as if a man were to sit wrapped from head to foot in a white garment, so that no part of him was untouched by that garment. So his body is suffused. This is a fruit of the homeless life, more excellent and perfect than the former ones. Let's stop here for a moment. So up to here, the Buddha is describing the charana. Charana is the practice of the holy life. Sometimes it's usually translated as conduct of the holy life. And here you notice how many items are given. 6 plus 4. 7 items are given. The first one is sila. Okay. And then the second one is guarding the sense doors. Third is mindfulness and clear awareness, sati sampajanya. Fourth is contentment. Fifth is seclusion or solitary lodging. Sixth is abandoning the 5 hindrances. And then 7 is the 4 jhanas. So there are 7 items. So you find people like Lady Sayadaw in his book, he describes charana as 7 items. But if you look through other nikayas, including the Majjhima and Sangyutta and Anguttara, you find there are 3 more items which a lot of learned monks have missed out. One is moderation in eating, Bojjhane Matanyutta. The second one is devotion to wakefulness, which is Jagarya Nuyoga. And the third is 7 good qualities, Satta Saddhamma, Saddha, Hiri, Ottappa, Bahu, Satcha, Virya, Sati, Panya. So the complete charana practice or conduct of the holy life is actually 10 items. Here is 7 items. Missing is moderation in eating, devotion to wakefulness, and 7 good qualities. Now we come to the second part, which is Vijja. The Sammasambuddha is supposed to be perfectly endowed with conduct and knowledge and conduct. So just now we heard was conduct. Now we come to knowledge, Vijja. And so with mind concentrated, purified and cleansed, unblemished, free from impurities, malleable, workable, established, and having gained imperturbability, he dwells, he directs and inclines his mind towards knowing and seeing. And he knows, this my body is material, made up from the 4 great elements, born of mother and father, fed on rice and gruel, impermanent, liable to be injured and abraded, broken and destroyed. And this is my consciousness which is bound to it and dependent on it. It is just as if there were a gem, a beryl, pure, excellent, well cut into 8 facets, clear, bright, unflawed, perfect in every respect, strung on a blue, yellow, red, white or orange cord. A man with good eyesight, taking it in his hand and inspecting it, would describe it as such. In the same way, Sire, a monk with mind concentrated, purified and cleansed, etc., directs his mind towards knowing and seeing, and he knows, this my body is material, made up of the 4 great elements, etc., and this is my consciousness, which is bound to it and dependent on it. This is a fruit of the homeless life, more excellent and perfect than the former ones. We'll stop here for a moment. So this is the first knowledge that this monk, after attaining the 4 jhanas, his mind being very concentrated, purified, cleansed, malleable and wieldy, he directs it to this part is called vipassana jnana, contemplation knowledge. Contemplation knowledge. So you see here, vipassana means contemplation. It's not insight. Vipassana jnana means contemplation knowledge. He contemplates, he realizes this body, this self has a material part and consciousness. And he with mind concentrated, etc., having gained imperturbability, applies and directs his mind to the production of a mind-made body. And out of this body he produces another body, having a form, mind-made, complete in all its limbs and faculties. It is as if a man were to draw out a reed from its sheath. He might think, this is the reed, this is the sheath. Reed and sheath are different. Now the reed has been pulled from the sheath. Or as if a man were to draw a sword from the scabbard. He might think, this is the sword, this is the scabbard. Sword and scabbard are different. Now the sword has been drawn from the scabbard. Or as if a man were to draw a snake from its old skin. He might think, this is the snake, this is the skin. Snake and skin are different. Now the snake has been drawn from its skin. In the same way, a monk with mind concentrated, etc., directs his mind to the production of a mind-made body. He draws that body out of this body, having form, mind-made, complete with all its limbs and faculties. This is the fruit of the homeless life, more excellent and perfect than the former ones. Stop here, this for a moment. This is the second knowledge he acquires. Because of having attained the 4th jhana, is able to draw out from the top of his head another body. Sometimes in the suttas, described as a golden body. It looks exactly like the physical body. This is called Mano Maya Idi, mind-created body. It's a type of psychic power. Now we come to the third. And he with mind concentrated, etc., applies and directs his mind to the various supernormal powers. He then enjoys different powers. Being one, he becomes many. Being many, he becomes one. He appears and disappears. He passes through fences, walls and mountains unhindered, as if through air. He sinks into the ground and emerges from it as if it were water. He walks on water without breaking the surface, as if on land. He flies cross-legged through the sky like a bird with wings. He even touches and strokes with his hand the sun and moon, mighty and powerful as they are. And he travels in the body as far as the Brahma world. Just as a skilled potter or his assistant can make from well-prepared clay whatever kind of bowl he likes, or just as a skilled ivory carver or his assistant can produce from that well-prepared ivory any object he likes, or just as a skilled goldsmith or his assistant can make any gold article he likes, so the monk with mind concentrated, etc., enjoys various supernormal powers. This is a fruit of the homeless life. Stop here for a moment. This is the third knowledge he acquires. This is called psychokinesis. In Pali is Idi Vida. These are the various types of psychic power. That he can multiply his body, he can appear and disappear, he can go through the wall, he can sink into the ground and come up, he can walk on water, he can fly through the air as far as the Brahma world. So you notice the human body, with the human body, a person with psychic power, the maximum he can fly with his human body is only up to the Brahma world, not higher. He can even touch the sun and the moon. This type of psychic power nowadays, you cannot find. Sometimes certain cultivators, they might have one, they might have two, but not all these psychic powers like the Buddha and his Arahant disciples have. So the Buddha describes this as a fruit of the homeless life. So it is something that comes naturally, and it is something good, not like some people say that psychic powers are bad. It is bad if you don't have the Dhamma to support you, because people, if they don't understand the Dhamma, when they attain psychic power, their ego becomes very big, like Devadatta. So it's very important, the Buddha always says, when you practice the Eightfold Path, to attain right view first. If you don't attain right view, then it may go off the track, go wrong way like Devadatta. So it is always stressed that wrong view, the right view is the most important. If you don't have right view, you haven't entered the Noble Eightfold Path. So to enter the Noble Eightfold Path, you must start with right view. Then only it will lead you to the others. And right view in the suttas, in the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta 43, it says there are two conditions for right view. One is the listening to the voice of another. Another person must teach you the Dhamma, the real Dhamma, the true Dhamma. Then you understand, that is the first condition. The second one is proper attention or careful attention. You pay proper attention, then only you can understand. Okay, now we come to the fourth knowledge. And he with mind concentrated, etc., applies and directs his mind to the divine ear. To the divine ear, purified and surpassing that of human beings, he hears sounds both divine and human, whether far or near. Just as a man going on a long journey might hear the sound of a big drum, a small drum, a conch, cymbals, or a cattle drum, and he might think, that is a big drum, a small drum, etc., a cattle drum. So the monk with mind concentrated, etc., hears sounds, divine or human, far or near. This is a fruit of the homeless life, more excellent and perfect than the former ones. Stop here for a moment. So here you see, the Buddha is giving progressively higher attainments. So each one, when the Buddha describes, the Buddha says, this is more excellent and perfect than the previous ones. So this one, the divine ear, is called Dibbasota. In English, it's called clairaudience. So a person with this divine ear, if he wants to hear ghosts talking, he can hear. He wants to hear devas talking, he can hear. He wants to hear us talking also, he can hear. And he with mind concentrated, etc., applies and directs his mind to the knowledge of others' minds. He knows and distinguishes with his mind the minds of other beings or other persons. He knows the mind with passion to be with passion. He knows the mind without passion to be without passion. He knows the mind with hatred to be with hatred. He knows the mind without hatred to be without hatred. He knows the deluded mind to be deluded. He knows the undeluded mind to be undeluded. He knows the narrow mind to be narrow. He knows the broad mind to be broad. He knows the expanded mind to be expanded. He knows the unexpanded mind to be unexpanded. He knows the surpassed mind to be surpassed. He knows the unsurpassed mind to be unsurpassed. He knows the concentrated mind to be concentrated. He knows the unconcentrated mind to be unconcentrated. He knows the liberated mind to be liberated. He knows the unliberated mind to be unliberated. Just as a woman or a man or young boy, fond of his appearance, might examine his face in a brightly polished mirror or in water, and by examination will know whether there was a spot there or not. So the monk with mind concentrated, etc., directs his mind to the knowledge of others' minds. This is the fruit of the homeless life, more excellent than the former ones. So this one, knowledge of others' minds, is called Cheto Pariya Jnana. In Chinese it's called Ta Sin Tong. Now we come to the sixth. And he with mind concentrated, etc., applies and directs his mind to the knowledge of previous existences. He remembers many previous existences, 1 birth, 2, 3, 4, 5 births, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 births, 100, 1,000, 100,000 births, several periods of contraction, of expansion, of both contraction and expansion. There my name was so and so, my clan was so and so, my caste was so and so, my food was such and such. I experienced such and such pleasant and painful conditions. I lived for so long. Having passed away from there, I arose there. There my name was so and so, etc. And having passed away from there, I arose here. Thus he remembers various past births, their conditions and details. It is just as if a man were to go from his village to another, and from that to yet another, and then return to this home village. He might think, I came from my own village to that other one, where I stood, sat, spoke, or remained silent like this. And from that one I went to another, where I stood, sat, spoke, or remained silent like this. And from there I have just returned to my own village. Just so the monk with mind concentrated, etc., remembers past births. This is a fruit of the homeless life, more excellent and perfect than the previous ones. So here is remembering past lives. In Pali it's called Pube Nivasa Nusati. Now we come to number 7. And he with mind concentrated, etc., applies and directs his mind to the knowledge of the passing away and arising of beings. With the divine eye, purified and surpassing that of humans, he sees beings passing away and arising, base and noble, well-favoured and ill-favoured, to happy and unhappy destinations as karma directs them. And he knows these beings, on account of misconduct of body, speech or thought, or disparaging the noble ones, have wrong view, and will suffer the karmic fate of wrong view. At the breaking up of the body after death, they are reborn in a lower world, a bad destination, a state of suffering, hell. But these beings, on account of good conduct of body, speech, or thought, of praising the noble ones, have right view and will reap the karmic reward of right view. At the breaking up of the body after death, they are reborn in a good destination, a heavenly world. Thus with the divine eye, etc., he sees beings passing away and re-arising. It is as if there were a lofty building at the crossroads, and a man with good eyesight standing there might see people entering or leaving a house, walking in the street, or sitting in the middle of the crossroads, and he might think, these are entering a house, etc. Just so with the divine eye, he sees beings passing away and re-arising. This is a fruit of the homeless life, more perfect and excellent than the former ones. Here it's talking about the divine eye or heavenly eye, being able to see all types of beings and they're arising and passing away. This is, in English, it's called clairvoyance. Pali is called Dibba Chakku. And he with mind concentrated, purified and cleansed, unblemished, free from impurities, malleable, workable, established and having gained imperturbability, applies and directs his mind to the knowledge of the destruction of the corruptions or asavas. Stop here for a moment. You see, when a person has attained the fourth jhana, this state, the mind is concentrated, purified and cleansed, unblemished, totally purified, not a spot of impurity, free from impurities, malleable, workable. Sometimes he said malleable, wieldy, establish and gain imperturbability, cannot shake. So before a person can apply his mind to the various psychic powers, he must attain this fourth jhana, so that the mind becomes purified, concentrated, malleable and workable. You can use it in whatever way you want. He knows as it really is, this is suffering. He knows as it really is, this is the origin of suffering. He knows as it really is, this is a cessation of suffering. He knows as it really is, this is a path leading to the cessation of suffering. And he knows as it really is, these are the asavas. This is the origin of the asavas. This is the cessation of the asavas. This is the path leading to the cessation of the asavas. And to his knowing and seeing, his mind is delivered from the asavas of sense desire, from the asava of becoming, from the asava of ignorance, and the knowledge arises in him. This is deliverance, and he knows birth is finished, the holy life has been led, done is what had to be done, there is nothing further here. Just as if, sire, in the midst of the mountains there were a pond, clear as a polished mirror, where a man with good eyesight standing on the bank could see oyster shells, gravel banks, and the shoals of fish on the move or stationary, and he might think, this pond is clear, there are oyster shells, etc. Just so with mind concentrated, etc., he knows, birth is finished, the holy life has been led, done is what had to be done, there is nothing further here. This, sire, is the fruit of the homeless life, visible here and now, which is more excellent and perfect than the previous fruits. And sire, there is no fruit of the homeless life, visible here and now, that is more excellent and perfect than this. Stop here for a moment. So this is the last of the knowledges under Vijja. This is called Asava Kaya Jnana, destruction of the asavas, and is equivalent to liberation or enlightenment. This asavas, I would translate, here is translated as corruptions. I would like to translate it as uncontrolled mental outflows. This is the leakage of the mind, the tendency for consciousness to flow. And this tendency for the consciousness to flow is extremely strong. And when we are not doing anything, the mind will start flowing. We start thinking, we start daydreaming. And it's so strong that when we go to sleep, it flows again and we start dreaming at night. So the problem with this flow of consciousness is that it creates the world. The world is created by consciousness because the world is in seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness, smell, taste, touch and thinking consciousness. The first five determines the outside world. The thinking consciousness is the inner world. So because the world is created by consciousness, to become liberated from the world of suffering, we have to end the flow of consciousness. So unless your mind is very strong, unless you have attained the fourth jhana, you are unable to stop the mind from flowing. So here you find to attain liberation, this person on the holy path, he has to contemplate the Four Noble Truths. Having contemplated the Four Noble Truths and the asavas, the flow of consciousness, then he becomes liberated. At this, King Ajata Sattu exclaimed, "Excellent Lord, excellent! It is as if someone were to set up what had been knocked down, or to point out the way to one who got lost, or to bring a lamp into a dark place, so that those with eyes could see what was there. Just so the Blessed Lord has expounded the Dhamma in various ways. And I, Lord, go for refuge to the Blessed Lord, to the Dhamma and to the Sangha. May the Blessed Lord accept me from this day forth as a lay follower as long as life shall last. Transgression overcame me, Lord, foolish, erring and wicked as I was, in that I, for the sake of the throne, deprived my father, that good man and just king, of his life. May the Blessed Lord accept my confession of my evil deed, that I may restrain myself in future." And the Buddha said, "Indeed, sire, transgression overcame you when you deprived your father, that good man and just king, of his life. But since you have acknowledged the transgression and confessed it as is right, we will accept it. For he who acknowledges his transgression as such and confesses it for betterment in future will grow in the Aryan discipline." At this, King Ajatasattu said, "Lord, permit me to depart now. I am busy and have much to do. Do now, your majesty, as you think fit." Then King Ajatasattu, rejoicing and delighting at these words, rose from his seat, saluted the Lord, and departed with his right side towards him. As soon as the king had gone, the Lord said, "The king is done for, his fate is sealed, monks. But if the king had not deprived his father, that good man and just king, of his life, then as he sat there, the pure and spotless Dhamma eye would have arisen in him." Thus the Lord spoke, and the monks delighted and rejoiced at these words. That's the end of the sutta. So just now I forgot to say, the last fruit of the holy life is the destruction of the asavas, and that is the most excellent and perfect fruit of the holy life, and there is no fruit of the holy life that is more excellent and perfect than attaining the destruction of the asavas, which is equivalent to enlightenment or liberation. So the king was very happy that the Buddha answered his question directly to the point and so detailed. And then he confessed to the Buddha that he did something very evil and wrong by killing his father. And the Buddha later told his monks that this king is done for, his fate is sealed. What do you mean by his fate is sealed? Because in the suttas, the Buddha said there are 5 very heavy, the 5 heaviest karmic offenses. The first one is to shed the blood of a Buddha, a Sammasambuddha, purposely harm a Sammasambuddha by shedding his blood. Secondly, killing an Arahant. Third one is killing your mother. Fourth is killing your father. And the fifth is splitting the Sangha into 2 Sanghas. A Sangha that is harmonious, you split the Sangha into 2 Sanghas. So once a person commits one of these 5 karmic offenses, hell is sure for him. There is no running away from hell. And he will go to hell for a long time. That's why the Buddha said his fate is sealed. And then the Buddha also said, if he had not killed his father, today I taught him the Dhamma eye or the Dhamma vision would have arisen in him. That means he would have understood the Dhamma and attained stream entry. So you find it's always listening to the Dhamma that a person attains the Dhamma eye, attaining stream entry. So unfortunately, because his mind was so disturbed that he listened to the Dhamma, he cannot sink in. When your sila is not pure, your mind is disturbed, there is remorse in you, and the mind becomes very disturbed. And so when you listen to something, you cannot concentrate. A lot of people are like that. Sometimes you tell them something, to do something or not to do something, they say later, as if they didn't hear what you said. They go and do what they're not supposed to do, or not do what they're supposed to do. That shows their mind is so scattered. It's elsewhere. When you're talking to them, they don't even catch what you're saying. In the same way. This is Ajatasattu, King Ajatasattu. So here, to recapitulate, the Buddha said the fruits of the holy life. Firstly is from the worldly point of view, if a person becomes a monk, then even the king will pay respect to him. But from the spiritual point of view, first is the practice of a monk. He practices the morality first, then as I mentioned, all the 10 practices under charana, and then after that he gains knowledge. Result of his practice, he gains knowledge. The first one is contemplation, knowledge, understanding that he's actually made out of the material body and the mental part, consciousness. And the second one is mano maya idi, mind created body. This is a psychic power. He can create from draw out from his body, another body. The third one is Idivida, psychokinesis, the various types of psychic powers. He can fly, he can multiply his body, he can go through the wall, etc. Then the fourth is clairaudience, the divine ear, Dibasota. The fifth is Cetoparya Jnana, knowledge of others' minds, able to read others' minds. The sixth is knowledge of previous lives, Pubbe, Nivasa, Nusati. And the seventh is clairvoyance, the divine eye or heavenly eye, Dibba Chaku. The eighth is destruction of the asavas, Asavakaya Jnana. And that means liberation or enlightenment. So these are the 8 knowledges under Vijaya. So I stop here. Anything to discuss? No. How can a person attain the first jhana and not aware of it? It means he's not mindful. There are some monks who say that when you attain jhana, you don't know. And then when you come out of it, only you know. And that means he was asleep. He was not in jhana. Jhana is a very mindful state. Very mindful. You cannot be more mindful than when you are in jhana.
Okay. Encourage the institution maybe under the tree, the root, or common ground and all that. But I see how we practice. What is
You're saying that it is hardly practiced by monks, staying in seclusion and under the tree and the charnel ground and all that. In the early part of the Buddha's ministry or teaching, the Buddha did not allow the monks to stay in monasteries. And the monks used to practice in seclusion. But later, as the Buddha was getting old, then he allowed lay people to build kutis for the monks to stay and establish monasteries. So that later monks used to practice in forest monasteries. During the Buddha's time, there were hardly any town monasteries. Most of the monasteries were forest monasteries. And the monks used to move from one monastery to another. And those monasteries, being forest monasteries, was large areas. Sometimes they were called avasa, or something they are translated as parks. So in those monasteries, the monks could meditate during the daytime under the trees or in the caves and all that. It is still being done in certain countries like Thailand. In fact, you find in the whole world, the most number of forest monks are found in Thailand. In Sri Lanka, you have some. But in Burma, you can hardly find, because Burma is, there's a lot of fighting between the Karen tribesmen and the government. So it's dangerous for monks to travel in the mountains or in the forest. So in Burma, you can hardly find forest monks. But formerly maybe. So there still are forest monks, like in Sri Lanka, in Thailand. But those monks, you don't know them because they don't want to know you. They want to stay alone.
Okay, another question. I hear there are monasteries in the country, the monks and Buddha and all. And there is hardly any mention about temples, about the temples and temples. But today, Buddhist temples are rather than monasteries. So, with Buddhists at that time, dwell in temples.
No, I mentioned that during the Buddha's time, most of the monasteries were forest monasteries, not town monasteries. Town monasteries, nowadays you call them temple, because they cater more for chanting than practice of the holy life.
Someone who reaches 4 jhanas is guaranteed that they will be karma.
No, not guaranteed. Those who don't understand the Dhamma, they won't even become a Sotapanna. You got to understand the Dhamma. And if you understand the Dhamma, and with the 4th jhana, you might become liberated.
Okay. The person without experiencing the seeing and nimitta and the
Without what?
seeing and nimitta.
Seeing the nimitta. This nimitta is something that comes from the Visuddhi Magga. And they talk about the light. And they associate the light with the object of meditation, for example, the breath. But as I mentioned just now, there are some monks whose experience is different. That it is not the light is not associated with the object of meditation, but as something that comes within you. People like the late Ajahn Mahathera, he also says that the light comes from within. So this concept of nimitta is something that is expanded by later monks. In the suttas there is mention of nimitta, but not in the sense that is explained in the Visuddhi Magga. The nimitta in the suttas is more like a sign or an object. Whatever you put your attention to, that is the nimitta, the samadhi nimitta, your object of concentration. That is what is meant in the suttas. So the problem nowadays with the monks who follow the books like the Visuddhi Magga is that they might start with the breath meditation. They contemplate the breath. Later, they want to see the light. So they start seeing the light, and then they change their object from the breath to the light. But that is no more the breath meditation. In the Buddha's teaching, it is concentration on the breath all the way until a person attains the 1st jhana. And then only he can put his attention on the 5 jhana factors. The 5 jhana factors does not include light. So in the Buddha's suttas and the Buddha's discourses, to attain jhana, 5 things are extremely important. Only when you attain these 5 things, you have attained jhana. The first one is thought directed and sustained. The second is the first one is thought directed. The second is thought sustained. These 2 are extremely important. Thought directed means, for example, you are meditating on your breath. Every time your mindfulness goes away, you pull it back, direct it to your breath. That is thought directed. And then to sustain it on your breath, that is thought sustained. To keep your attention on your breath, that is thought sustained. So if it runs away again, you pull it back to your breath, that is vitakka, thought directed. And to sustain it on your thought is vichara. These are the 2 factors that you have to practice first. So you keep practicing these 2, then slowly the mind becomes concentrated, and when it becomes one-pointed, the other 3 factors come. Piti, which is delight, sukha, which is happiness or bliss, and ekagata, which is one-pointedness. So when you attain these 5 states, you enter the 1st jhana. So you see that these 5 states does not talk about nimitta, does not talk about the light. Alright? So the light is something that is just a passing thing. It comes and it goes. But the problem is, if you pay too much attention on the light, it becomes imaginary. then you keep thinking about light, and then you see the light because you want to see the light, so you keep seeing the light. But that is not jhana. Jhana is these 5 jhana factors. Okay? So that's why you have to be very familiar with the Buddha's words. Otherwise, you have thought something else and you believe in it. If jhana were important, if the light were important, it would constitute one of the 5 jhana factors. But because it is not in the 5 jhana factors, it is not important in the Buddha's discourse. Only the 5 jhana factors are important because only the 5 jhana factors will bring you into jhana. Okay? So shall we end here? Getting late, tired.